Oh, you put it, keep
No,
it here
yeah,
someplace.
yeah, yeah.
It's all good.
Might have been my packet.
It's all good.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. We will start first on the agenda with the approval of minutes for October 3rd, 2024. We were all here for both, so we can just do a single motion for regular session and executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Second. All in favor?
I just have one
Oh, sorry.
typo,
Didn't
sorry.
know.
Sorry, just one typo on the regular minutes.
Okay.
On the second page under Tantasco representative. It should be recognized for unified sports, right?
Yes, not
Yeah.
uniformed.
Yeah.
Unified.
Okay.
Okay, now all in
Great
favor?
catch.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and now we'll go to the financial report.
Okay, so we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. First, I just need to refresh myself, which town I'm in, how things are going. I think most, I'm not gonna promise, but I think most of what we would typically have encumbered at this point in time has been. I would say to me, I think just knowing what's happening in your special ed tuition world, I feel like there's probably at least one that is not encumbered. So, because last I checked, we didn't have that much balance in that, but we're pretty close to there. There's also ins and outs. Notice right now today, we're going to do our best to try and adjust that, but your special ed transportation line is looking over based on current students, new placements, and a combination of contracted out and your special ed.
Can I just, I want to just make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah.
So the report that we've received, that
Yeah.
as of November 1st, in the last week or so, there's been a significant difference, or?
No, this is, what I just need to remind myself, where I'm saying, don't get excited
Okay.
at the fact that on page 3, your special ed tuitions has $100,000 there not encumbered. I don't think that's the case. I think there's still at least one tuition that hasn't been fully encumbered yet, because we had a placement at the beginning of the year. So, because those are the things my eyes go to say where have we got some positives versus the negatives. I don't think that one is as positive as it looks.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, the housekeeping that we'd like to do this year and this month, and we did let you know last month that it was coming. We had a lot of ups and downs between your professional salary staff, so I'd like to clean that up. So some of it is due to movement that we knew at the end of the year when there are retirements or replacements. You have staff from one particular category that wants to move to another. We had turnover and hired folks at a different salary than we projected, all of that. What I'd like to do is, what's in your report are the 4, they're net zero. So this is about changing the budget numbers. That once we change those starting budget numbers, we'll make all of those negatives on the right side go away. And more importantly, be a more realistic starting point when we're starting to build fiscal 26 budget. We want to really be able to compare where we're really at. So my ask would be that you support the transfer as presented there for those salary lines.
Okay, so you need a motion to approve transfer of $30,473 from the guidance salaries to the psychologist line salary, and a motion to transfer $113,114 from the teacher salary to the special ed
For
teacher
starting
salary line.
balances, yes.
For starting balances.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve those two transfers?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Okay, we'll take care of that. So by next month, this will look a little bit better. Just from that perspective, we're already starting the 26 budget, and we still don't have any answers on rural aid. So no conversations there about what we could or should do with whatever little funds come. The latest I heard was the middle of November, which is disappointing because, as we've said all along, preaching to the choir, when you take too long to tell us, we can't really plan to use it for truly good educational things. Last year, we heard by November 15th, the year before it was September 15th, and it's ironic that, my mantra this year was, could you tell us earlier, like March, so we could make plans? So, no news there yet to share with you all, but I'll keep you posted.
Got one question
Yeah.
on special ed transportation.
Uh-huh.
The encumbered on that jumped by 700,000 since
Yeah.
last month.
Because last month, we didn't have all of, I think there's three currently that we are contracting out to do, because as kids increase and we didn't have the capacity internally to do it, we've had to go to the outside contractors. So the encumbrance now is assuming we'd have to use the outside contractors for the rest of the year. I optimistically, I hope those are like the priorities to get off of.
Okay.
But
that would
that
come
should be worse, yes, than
Down
if we, right.
if we're able to do it.
Correct, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But we figured we'd at least try and start right now looking at worst case scenario.
Does anyone else have any questions on the financial report? No? Okay. Moving on to communications.
Nice, is that true? I guess so.
Wow, okay. Mrs. Kelly to the principal's report.
Good evening, everyone. We'll just start off with enrollment. Our enrollment is stable at this point. I'd like to actually recognize Mr. K's class who participated in the Revolutionary War Soldier, a tribute to the Revolutionary War soldiers at the old burial ground today. It was a beautiful day. Last year it was freezing
gorgeous
cold.
day for it
Today was beautiful, so it's just really nice, and I want to thank Bob Ria for organizing this annual event. Curriculum instruction and assessment, spring 2024 MCAS student reports were sent home back on Friday, October 4th, and tonight Assistant Superintendent Jody Barrasso will be presenting the results. Fall parent-teacher conferences will be held Tuesday, November 19th and Wednesday, November 20th, and report cards will be distributed on December 13th. Professional development, we just had a professional development day on the 25th where we had a keynote speaker as well as different opportunities for staff to participate. Building usage, as you can see, I won't go through the whole thing. There are lots of current reservations as well as lots and lots of requests for utilizing the facilities. And we're trying to manage that.
I made an extra one.
Thank you. Oh, you did?
I did.
So, and please take some time and peruse all of the wonderful activities that are going on here at school by grade level and department. On that note, are there any questions in this report? Okay. I just want to publicly apologize. As you are aware, we had a district attorney's presentation for our 5th and 6th grade students focusing on cyberbullying. Typically, and those of you who have been here for a while may remember that in the past we would have the presentation during parent-teacher conferences by the district attorney, so our parents would be able to sort of hear and participate in what was going to be relayed to the children. We have had a very difficult time getting the district attorney in, and we do have some pretty pertinent situations that are going on. So we did push it forward, so we had the presentation before parents had an opportunity to hear what was going to be said. So I do want to publicly apologize, know that that won't happen moving forward. We did postpone the younger grades presentations till the spring. We still haven't set a date, and hopefully we'll be able to, we'll definitely have a parent presentation first, followed by student presentations, and we will look to the opportunity for parents to opt their children out in the future.
And we'll make sure that we get the date
Out there, yeah.
in the principal's report. This particular time,
We
at the
had
time
booked.
of publishing the principal's report, they didn't have a date, they offered a date that was before the next meeting. In retrospect, we should have just said, nope, that's not gonna work, and waited so that we could get it into report, since that's been past practice here. So we'll fix that going forward for sure.
Can I ask a question on that? first of all, thank you.
Mhm.
That was very appreciative. For the younger students,
It's a different topic.
okay, because
Kindness and empathy is the actual
okay,
topic.
that is, it's just concerning for me.
Mhm.
Specifically, I have a fourth grader,
Mhm.
so he would be, and I could opt out.
Mhm.
But would there be, I guess, an option, and you and I touched a little bit on that, and we don't have to open it up to a
Right.
huge discussion here, but I think a lot of parents might appreciate the option to sit in with their child, perhaps, and then,
Well, I didn't have a chance, I didn't even have a chance to
oh,
talk to you.
sorry.
So, no, it's
And
okay.
even for the older kids, then maybe I wouldn't have felt, or even other parents wouldn't have felt so blindsided by the topic. Not so much, it would just have given me an opportunity to prepare myself for the questions that were coming.
Right, so I would definitely entertain that. When the district attorney historically would come during parent-teacher conferences, oftentimes parents have their children with them.
Right, yeah.
And they would actually
Exactly.
be in there and they would be hearing, but, you know, so.
Especially where it's a general
Mhm.
presentation, and yes, some of the material is uncomfortable. So you definitely, you deserve to know what kind of questions could come your way. And I don't think, we worry sometimes, we love our parents to be connected to our kids.
Right.
Sometimes we worry in other presentations is anything going to stifle the child from being completely honest? But I don't think this is one of those presentations that we're really querying or asking the children as much as we're trying to
Inform
share
them.
information and inform, so it certainly would make
One other point
sense.
of note is it was the first time we've had that presenter.
Yeah.
So we
The presenter
typically,
herself.
Ellen Miller, those of you who've been here for a while, Ellen Miller would typically be our presenter, and, you know, a mom herself, a little bit different delivery.
I will say, I think the delivery
Mhm.
lost the message.
Mhm.
I don't disagree personally that the content needs to be shared.
Mhm.
I would have liked to know what the content was prior.
Mhm. And we'll make sure that.
Yeah, and yeah.
Yep.
But the presentation that she gave to the 5th and 6th grade was not the presentation that she gave on the Zoom. It was different, and I will say that because my 5th grader and I were on the Zoom together.
Would you like me to share that with?
Well, I think it's worth passing on because
I actually have a call in too.
Yeah, we
to
will
Ellen
pass
Miller.
that
I think
on
this was
because
super
I
concern.
myself
And yeah, and you and I
have
have
one,
spoke
we
about
have,
that.
I had not seen the presentation beforehand. So certainly when the questions came, we immediately contacted, and I completely get why their office would not want to just give us with the potential of not knowing where it is. So I said, that's fine, but I need to see it because I can't keep having questions when I haven't seen it. So it was a very quick pass-through, but I don't think we even mentioned, originally, our SRO saw originally, the SRO was charged with giving a review, kind of knowing the students and the lens it's coming from, giving a review. So the SRO saw it beforehand and sat in on the quick run-through for me and Kathy.
Yeah.
And then afterwards did share that there was at least one slide that had changed. So I immediately said we need to put a call in there because I think that one slide was one that caused some controversy.
Correct,
So
yeah. And we did.
We're on it.
Ellen Miller was on the call when we went through the presentation, so I have reached out to her to let her know.
And they've always been very open. We want to continue that relationship. That is a two-way benefit relationship, so we want to keep it going. But I do think they're open to hearing us. And again, we have a new presenter, and maybe they were still drafting and changing the presentation, but we've got to work through that.
We'll be
That aside, we also owe you what we've done in the past, which is the notification here, and we'll certainly add the opt-out options and talk about whether the ones that are appropriate, and we have the capacity to say, parents that want to come and sit through it, absolutely.
Well, I definitely appreciate, at least the discussion and definitely the follow-up.
Yeah.
And I know that there will be a lot of parents that appreciate that too.
Good.
So, thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm just going to do the couple of quick almost housekeeping-ish, and then we'll turn it over to Jody and Kathy to go, because the only couple of things that I have in addition to the main event that is really the MCAS is to again remind folks the joint meeting on Tuesday, the 19th at the junior high. Do you?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, I did not realize that. That
Oh,
isn't.
no,
that's in the
not even
afternoon.
me, that's a half day. Oh.
Fine.
The afternoon.
Fine.
Sorry.
Phew, I was like, wait a minute, how did that happen? All right, you know what, no pressure, I'm just
Nice
saying. It's on the 19th, it starts at 6 o'clock. Most of you, I think, know the drill. We hope and hope that you can all come and participate in the conversation. When it comes to voting, the Union 61 have 3 of you, and I don't remember which 3 of you were the initials. But again, if any of you can't make it, we go down to alternate 1 and alternate 2, and that's just kind of to have the equal vote from the Union 61 side. But the topics again will be the true official kickoff to fiscal school year 25, 26. Oh. So it'll be the calendar for next year, it'll be the central office budget for next year. We'll share enrollment numbers this year that feeds finances for next year, and update you all on the communications subcommittee and the district improvement plan activities. So hopefully you can make it. Junior high on the 19th. And those of you that cannot, I'm more than happy to update after. Yeah, I say that because I know our cable folks often show up there, and we change. Once a year, we don't meet at the junior high. Usually December, we meet at the high school. But this is the junior high meeting. And your Tantasco rep will get the joy of staying after that meeting, because then we'll go into the Tantasco meeting. Just other, FYI, and I don't remember if I mentioned last month that we have got the state tiered focus monitoring review coming, which is really concentrating on civil rights and equity and compliance. They will be in the district physically the week of December 9th, going to, I think, all schools throughout the week, kind of looking. The pre-work has been done, looking at our manuals, looking at our practices and procedures. Then they come and put eyes on each of our facilities. They typically concentrate in more of the special needs programs to make sure that we're meeting regulations as far as what is truly inclusion or timeout spaces is a big thing that district-wide, not that statewide, they've been really looking to make sure schools don't have spaces that are inappropriate and aren't regularly isolating children, which we don't. We have great programs to make sure we don't do that here. So I'm sure it will go well, but it will be a week of having, just the word auditor or reviewer always puts people on edge. I don't typically stress over it too much, but there will be unfamiliar faces from the state here that week. That is it for me. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jody and Kathy, kind of maybe tag teaming, talking about what the MCAS results were for this meeting.
Yes, so if you look at your packet, actually the accountability system hasn't changed in a couple of years. What you're going to see very differently this year is we now are tabulating data over a 2-year period. So there's weightings in there that we have not seen since pre-COVID. So just to preface that. Now the accountability percentage, percentile of 65, it's slightly different than last year because it's a 2-year collection of data of a 60-40 weight. So this is the only number that compares Burgess to other schools that test kids in grades 3 through 8, even though we only test grades 3 through 6. So it actually puts Burgess in the same bucket as junior high, as any school that tests students in grades 3 through 8. It's the only score on this chart that does that. Everything else is a Burgess to Burgess comparison, okay? So I bring you to the next chart on the first page. This shows how Burgess does to acquiring or achieving the targets that the DESE sets for us. The DESE has formulas based on the performance of the school, and suggest that we reach this certain mark for the current year. We haven't gotten those targets this year. For last year, we didn't get the targets until like February or March. It was very late. So it's very hard to say we're gonna move the needle in a month. It's better to get the targets in the beginning of the year. Unfortunately, their targets run off SIMS data, and it's just a process. It's just a slow rollout. So doesn't matter. We still test our kids here in the schools, and we are showing and tracking their progress with our local data. So it does align most of the time, but to not get those targets until later the school year, it's almost a disadvantage. They're getting better year after year, but it's still a disadvantage. So you can see from 23 to 24, there is an increase from Burgess actually attaining their targets. They went from 39% to 43%. Now, they put those weights together to get this overall average of 42% for the 60-40 weighting, and that's moderate progress towards attaining the targets that have been set. The next chart down below actually shows I'm fine. It's just
A lot of talking.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, shows the two groups. Now it's a 50-50 weight. All students versus lowest performing students. The idea here has always been the case for accountability is to raise the floor to meet the ceiling so that that gap closes. So lowest performing students is a 2-year data point for both ELA and math. So it's really focusing in on our 5th and 6th graders. So those are the target group. You can see there's a lot of gain there. When you see 2s, 3s, and 4s, that's good. A 2 means that that particular group has improved towards its target. A 3 means it met that target, and a 4 means it exceeded. So we're right in the average of meeting and exceeding in that lowest performing subgroup, okay? There's certainly an area of improvement in both subgroups of chronic absenteeism, and we'll discuss that after. So the all students is even, now you take that lowest performing group and you put them in the all students category. So see how they're like counted twice. They're not taken out of the all students. So overall, our all students in ELA is a 0, which means it declined to the target. And I'll show you the targets on the next page. It's really not much of a decline. Even 1/10 of a point is a decline. They'll put a 0 there. So, you know, it's small, but it's still a 0. Mathematics achievement, they improved. And the science achievement actually declines. And we'll see the targets on the next page. So you get these points based on the rubric that they set. And that's how they get the 43 percentile of actually meeting and attaining targets for this school year. Okay, there's an area of improvement, obviously with chronic absenteeism, it shows a 0, which means it declined. And that, you know, it's just a difficult process. We have processes in place to help, but when you're dealing with illnesses and just anything that puts a student out for 4 or 5 days, it's hard to recover those days.
Well, in keeping in mind our target was, you know, our benchmark was quite high to meet because our attendance had typically been
good,
really solid, so
yeah.
the target becomes harder and harder to reach because we, you know, but we do address it, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we're addressing it later.
Yes, so, I mean, this grid on it just shows that we are doing really well with our subgroups. And our lowest population, our high needs are, and we'll see that those increases on the last page.
Which I think is key to keep in mind, this page and the next one, where we're just kind of comparing against ourselves before you get to State or Union 61.
Yeah.
It's good news and then okay news. And it's actually, we found it a few places across the district. The improvement in the subcategories is better than the overall, which for years you've probably been hearing, those are the categories we're focusing on, and so how do you get those lowest performing or the high needs, the L population, the low income, those are typically, always, actually not typically, they're always the struggling areas. And interestingly, in a number of our schools/districts, we've made more progress, so kind of our mantra district-wide is we're making progress on what we focus on. We have to make sure we keep focusing on the whole while we're focusing on the subgroups. So that's where we are, district leadership, because it's not just Burgess, it's a number of our schools that are like, okay, it's great, we've been looking at these categories for so long, but we can't lose track of the whole while we're focusing on these subgroups.
So the next page, now we're going to drill down. So that's the big picture. Now we drill down to show on page 2, show you the content areas that were tested in, which you know, English, math, and science. Our target number here is 500, and the closer we get to 500, it is harder to keep raising that achievement level. So, you know, that's the reality. So when we have nice, healthy scores, when you look at the subgroups here for all students, the change is minus for ELA, negative 2.2. You can see the slight changes. They're all basically under 2 points except for one subgroup, as you can see that. When we get over to, these are the areas that we really need to focus on to try to move the needle in the other direction. So for ELA is the biggest dip. That is actually pretty consistent across the state. ELA is seeing those dips in ELA across the state. Math, you can see the targets, the change, you want to see the change column. Even though we had a math pilot last year, it really didn't impact our scores. In fact, overall, it increased our scores. Only by 0.5 point, but it doesn't matter. We had 2 programs running simultaneously in a school district. You would think just by that alone would decrease scores. So to increase, especially with the size school that this is, I think that's a notable area, especially in the fact that we were running a pilot. So, so hopefully, as we continue to adopt best practices and across, we hope to keep seeing that achievement level go higher. And then science, a little bit of drop. We'll look at that. That's mainly because last year Burgess piloted the simulation
state
test.
Mandated pilot.
Yeah.
State mandated that we pilot the simulation.
Burgess was selected.
So 50% of the curriculum was actually being delivered to a test that we were scored on, we received no feedback on, but the teachers were not teaching how they would be
So you gotta take
Right.
that with
Yeah,
2
so-
grains of salt.
Right. So, so the other part of this page just shows that there's 23 subgroups on this page between all 3 content areas. Of the 23 subgroups, 8 targets are higher than we were pre-COVID. The others are still below where we were pre-COVID. So, and it could be insignificant, but still, that's what the last column actually shows, is that there are some areas that we're still not where we were before the pandemic. So, just to show you that. All right, now we get in the weeds. We actually can see on page 3, this is for ELA to start. We can see lots of trends on this particular page, and you'll see it with math as well. We can compare Burgess year to year, so you can go horizontally across. And for grade 3, it's pretty consistent. 52% of our students are in the top 2 categories, the meeting and exceeding. You know, the target number here, we'd like to get closer to 60 to 70 would be nicer. 57 is where we were this year's 4th grade. So, so you can see that across going across left to right, there's not a lot of significant changes except for in grade 5. You can see a drop. You're going to see the same trend for math for grade 5. And we got to remember, these students their foundational skills were truncated 3 years ago. So we're still trying to recover from that. So that to me was glaring, knowing that I know that they were kindergartens or 1st graders when all that online schooling took place. So we're still recovering. I mean, that's the reality. We can compare Burgess to Union 61 in the state, and again, in most areas, Burgess is higher than the state in Union 61, again, except for in grade 5. And then we can look at cohort data. So what I want to make note of is let's look at the 6th graders who left. They just left. So you want to start grade 4 ELA 2022, and then go to grade 5, 2023, and then go to grade 6, 2024. So there was a big hike from 4th to 5th grade. And then, you know, 47, that's 6%, 7%, that might be 10 kids in this group. It's not a lot of kids. It's 54 to 47, still consistent. What you want to look at is the not meeting categories. Those are pretty consistent. You can see a good jump in grade 4 from 2023 to 2024 that we're moving kids out of the bottom
Down,
category.
right.
So, those are some notable areas, but what happened in grade 4 went in reverse in grade 5, right? So.
And that's what we
Yeah.
need to, because in the end, zero disrespect, we love and support those really high performers, but in the end, our job is to get kids over to meets. So anything we look on that far right, when we see those numbers go up, it's concerning, because we gotta get them to Met. We absolutely want to continue to serve and feed the high achievers and keep them challenged. But we've got to really be focused on getting every child to meet proficiency. So when you see a number go up on the far right, that is as important or maybe more important than worrying about a little bit of a dip in the far left section. So those things that we're starting to look at, yeah. Yeah.
So on page 4 shows the math, the same type of data. We can look at year-to-year data. Fairly consistent, I would say, in grade 3. There was a nice jump from 2023 to 24, horizontal change. And then if you look at grade 6, very strong. When you're getting into the upper 60s, that's very strong for year-to-year data. We're going to see the same trends in math as we did ELA. The same trends. 5th grade tends to be a little bit lower. They have a high not meeting category, but everything else is pretty similar to ELA. Any questions with those comparative data?
The cohort, though, usually the job is she's the good cop on the back. I'm gonna good cop and say, we just didn't concentrate on that math just leaving. Current in 7th grade, if you followed them over the 3 years, that was back when they were in 4th grade at 47, dipped down to 39,
And then back up.
spiked up to 65. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And again, I the bad cop back on, don't love on the far right a couple of other years that were up higher. But also the reminder, we talked a little bit last month about statewide ELA struggles. So not that that is an okay excuse at all, but statewide they struggled. So statewide was more consistent in math, but our stronger math continues, which is great.
Yep. And grade 5, science, we only have grade 5 data, so there's no cohort trends. However, you can see the dip naturally because of the type of testing that took place here. We don't know that that's the only, but that's a big factor. Students weren't prepared, teachers weren't prepared enough going into the simulated tests. So, we got some work to do. We now know what that looks like. And, start preparing students a little bit better. So that's achievement. The next aspect for MCAS is growth. Growth, the target here, the range is between 40 and 60, so these are very healthy scores. It's a percentage point, but if you look at grade 6 math, the idea here is if we improve student growth, then we're going to improve student achievement, and that was very indicative here. I will tell you that the color code is wrong on the chart. It drives me crazy. So it doesn't really matter because you'll see. If you turn the page, this is what it looks like. So this is what achievement and growth look like together. When growth is in the middle, the idea is we want to get to the top right-hand corner. You can see that clearly in grade 6 math, right? That's what we want to happen. This chart just puts achievement and growth in one as it looks. So ELA is right around the state SGP, but there's some achievement that's low, right? In math, again, there's some around the state levels, but SGP is healthy, but some achievement is still lower than the state. So this bubble right here is supposed to be the dark yellow, not the light yellow. So that's what needs to be changed.
Is
So,
the state the mean for all grades?
yes, this is all students, all grades, yep. And we can drill down and we can look at this for all grade levels, we can look at subgroups, there's so much we can do with the data. And we do analyze the data, but this is big picture for all students here. And then the last part for notable areas on page 7, as we mentioned in the lowest performing categories, I just point out specifically what our high needs, low income, and student with disabilities improved from one year to the next. Because to me, in a large school like Burgess, 3 percentage points is a lot. You're moving, anywhere from 6 to 10 kids. So I think that's that's big numbers. So that's great in those populations. And then Kathy will share areas of improvement.
So, obviously, as Deb had said, we will be focusing, identifying the students at all performance levels, but with particular attention given to students scoring below the 500-point threshold in the lowest performing student groups. We have already performed item analysis so that we know where our things that we're missing and things that we're doing really well on. We will continue to provide additional supports to our L students as well as all of our other subgroups. Unfortunately, the fourth bullet we cannot actually do. We will not receive the written responses as we have in the past, so we really won't be able to actually look at that carefully. We do have scores, but we don't actually have the writing to really dive down deep. We will continue to provide support to students demonstrating need based on multiple measures, so we don't just use the MCAS to identify students who need help. So we'll be looking at our benchmark assessments, our screenings, our unit assessments, as well as teacher observations. We continue to improve the student support team to assist teachers in identification of students requiring support. We will continue to monitor the multi-tiered system of support to ensure the integrity of core instruction. We'll continue to provide students with multiple opportunities to develop technological skills, particularly those required for online assessments. And I'll speak a little bit more about this last one, identifying students in danger of being chronically absent, communicate with families the importance of school attendance, and provide support to families in need. So just so that you're aware, there's multiple benchmarks given by like the state has a benchmark as far as what they believe chronic absenteeism or truancy is. The state has another one. The state considers anything above 10% absenteeism as being chronically absent, okay? The state considers 8 days in a 45-day period. I still apply the 45-day period, but I apply 10% absenteeism to the 45-day period. So we track at 45 days. So we're at 47, 48. So we actually have letters ready to go out to parents of students who have exceeded five absences within this time frame. We do go through those very carefully to make sure, as we were talking about like significant illnesses, we have a lot of pneumonia right now in the school and some pertussis as well. So, we really take those factors into consideration, excused absences as we would consider them. We look at, family situations. Is there been a death in the family? Is something going on? But other than that, everybody else who is falling within that 10% absenteeism within a 45-day period will be receiving notes. What we've done to sort of try to really capture this, because this has been sort of my baby, I guess, in working with the health office and Lisa Hillstat and those types of things. We've actually assigned Caroline Blake to be monitoring the chronic absenteeism. So she's one of our adjustment counselors, and she is, really on this. So we are, steps that we take when families are really having, we look at history too. We don't just look at one window in time, but, if we really see a family is struggling, is there a child who is school avoidance, is what's going on and how do we help? So she is on that, but we are working to make sure that those zeros on chronic absenteeism go away, but keeping in mind when other schools were having their chronic absenteeism was like at 20 or 25%. Burgess was like at 18. So our target got lowered to 12. So it's really hard once you hit solid numbers because we track it. I look at attendance every single day. Burgess is typically 95% all in most of the time. So we really don't have a big issue. Just the state's not recognizing that once you get to a certain point, it's hard to keep up. But, are there any questions?
I have a question. So when you're reporting that data to the state, like I know you're saying that you're not sending letters to families if it's an excused absence. Like, does the state take that into account,
No.
or it doesn't matter?
No.
Like, if you're out
Absence is
for
absent.
absence is absence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
When does, so you group it into your first 45 days of school?
I'll do every 45 days.
Okay, so it's.
But then it becomes cumulative, based on, so there's multiple measures that we're looking
Okay.
at. So we look at 45-day windows and then we look at cumulative.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's worth emphasizing, because I'm quite often one of those auditors that gets sent in through our company, gets hired by Dusty to do those things, and nobody wants to see us, ever. And that's fine, that's a reasonable response.
I feel bad, because they're,
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, it's also.
they're not coming to play gotcha.
Here's the
They
thing, I
want
think-
to help us.
Burgess is sometimes twice the size.
Yes.
As many other elementary schools,
Yes.
and it's not, the instruments and tools that the state uses are blunt and rough.
Yes.
And it is not necessarily a fair, like saying grades 3 through 8, because so many schools across the state are 3 through 8. This is not a reasonable approach, but it is what it is. And so I think when we look at our numbers, I just want to emphasize that. I know you said it, but I think it's important to emphasize that Burgess is kind of at a disadvantage in terms of the calculations.
Yes.
And I was really pleased to see, because I had my arrows going.
You and Carol.
Yep.
Follow the children.
Yeah.
Which you did, and I appreciate you going through the cohort. I am concerned about how our 5th grade friends, and now who are our 6th grade friends,
Right.
Pandemic impacts, it's a long tail. But it's also maybe our conversation last month about curriculum, and are there conversations happening? Bridges math is gold standard, good stuff. Are there conversations about content in relation to ELA? I'll just say recognizing that the whole state, the whole Commonwealth has to acknowledge the need for literacy improvement. So.
But it's specifically in the area of writing.
Right.
When we do our item analysis, it's in the area of writing.
And
So we are actually,
yeah.
Jody.
And during COVID, with SOA monies, we did put a lot of monies in towards early literacy. So now we're seeing the trend that we do have to spend time with the writing component, because extenuating writing alone, we all would rather go and do the short phrase and put it on text. Kids get the same, they do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So we gotta teach that stamina, but it starts first with the foundational skills in the younger grades and building on that. So it's going to take time. We are definitely having more and more conversations across all elementary schools to talk about best practices, to kind of bring teachers together so that there are some uniformities through all the grades. But an actual resource, let's just say there's not a resource out there that will do everything we need
That's
for
correct.
literacy.
Yeah,
So
no, that's absolutely
we
true.
need to bridge the gaps, and that's what we're starting to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions on the NCAS report? No? Thank you. We will move on, and I will open up to public access. Anyone that wants to speak? No? Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Oh,
Sorry, I thought you were looking
No,
down
go
here.
ahead.
No, I was actually just thinking about the meeting in March that we had last year regarding the migrants and the funding that the town received. I believe in March, we received a little over 300,000 for September through December. So was there additional monies to the rest of the year? What was the total? Where was it allocated? And I believe I remember hearing that some of that could be transferred over to this year. Were there funds transferred over?
Yep, absolutely. The carried over, we could legally carry over about 260,000, so that is paying for some of the transportation this year, some of the translation services, some of your L services, where you've still got a population coming from Auburn every day, so yep, we're spreading that down.
Okay, so we do some balance.
Yep. I believe the state still has, like, if we were to get new, and again, it's homeless. If we were to get a new homeless student, we are eligible for, but,
Eligible for McKinney-Vento.
right.
Right.
I don't know, but again, some of it, and again, some of it is you're eligible to the point that the line item was funded.
Right.
So DESI hasn't completely kind of figured out their funding this year. They were short on circuit breaker. When they actually got all the circuit breaker calculations, we're shorted there. And I think part of the reason we don't have any rural aid information is that they're all struggling. They were waiting to see if a supplemental budget would come to help fund the shortfall on circuit breaker. So I don't know at this point, what McKinney-Vento funds are still left. We haven't got a whole lot of influx. We certainly still have a number of homeless students, not only the ones coming from Auburn. But when they come one or two at a time, we've been doing that forever. We just know how to work with them, and often they're within a location that they're not difficult to transport. They're not so far away, so we kind of keep an eye on that. We haven't had any significant bubbles with new populations this year.
And we are paying for that transportation from Auburn.
We're sharing the cost, but we're paying from that grant. So it's not in your budget at all. That's why we were able to roll over that. So we're still able to pay for that transportation and any education connected to them in any way we can put there. But the rule around homeless transportation is the cost is split between where they became homeless, which was here, because the first school, which is here, and where they're now staying, which is Auburn. So Auburn Public Schools is paying half of that.
And
while we're paying.
that's not forever, that's for.
That's always been the case.
No, correct. I'm saying that until those students are settled, this is.
Yeah, it's until they're deemed no longer homeless,
yeah.
which with that population is still sort of in flux. So certainly some that are originally we served last year have found homes and some are still attending in our district and some are not. But that population, again, it'll be for as long as they qualify as being defined as homeless. Yeah.
And just a follow-up from June's meeting about the subline 180. I believe we discussed in September 2 or in June that those line items were going to be added to the budget because they were supposed to be separated because the substitute line 180
This is
is
sub.
not
What we
just-
said is as we used subs this year, we would make sure that we charge the support, the non-professional teaching lines to a more appropriate, whether it be the para line that they're budgeted in, or in some cases, it's actually the revolving fund because they're in the pathways. So we have been doing that this year. When we build a budget next year, we will probably build a separate sub-line.
So how do you differentiate, I guess was my question.
We do
Because
that
it-
as we process payroll this year. We've been making sure that we're not charging anything to that teacher line, that it's going to either, go ahead, Kathy.
Based
I'm
on,
sorry.
based on what line they're paid from.
Right.
So an example would be a paraprofessional in a substantially separate classroom is funded through the revolving account. That sub will get charged to that account. And same thing with the para line.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public access. We will move on to subcommittee reports with the rural subcommittee. Mary?
Yeah, thank you. So the rural committee is getting together tomorrow at the MSAC meeting in the afternoon. I will not be able to attend, but we will receive materials. The leaders of the committee are going to make an appeal to MASC to get more support for advocating for rural needs at the State House. And they expect there won't be much opposition, but just they're trying to do, it's almost like an educational campaign for fellow districts in places like Brockton or Springfield to understand this need, particularly as it relates to transportation. So they have some real concrete examples of the need within their districts in Western Mass, in the Berkshires, and we count, of course. Their online regular meeting is going to be held on the 19th at 6 p.m. So since I'll be at the junior high meeting, I will get notes. It's a red letter day apparently. But they as far as I've seen, there's no additional communication about the holdup. This being an election year, maybe it was not top of mind for some folks. But they're going to keep the issue fresh, and they are going to try to have a State House Day where folks are going up there in person, having meetings with their representatives to have a conversation about the need. So that's what I have to offer.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, ma'am.
And then moving on to the TANTAS program.
So everybody's super busy at the junior high and senior high. It's always nice to hear what the students are doing. We do have a joint meeting this month, so the 19th. Yep. Get everyone, join me there. The senior high did announce their AP data from last year, which was interesting to hear. They had 185 students taking tests, but they had, of those students, there was a number of 299 tests taken. So that's great. They increased their scores on quite a few tests. Biggest one being A-Push, which went from a 3.4 to the average score of 4.0, so that's great. Big increase. We did ask for all the scores, so we'll get more of the scores hopefully next time, but there was a big increase on a number of tests, which is really great to see the students doing well. We also talked about MCAS scores as well, and I'm never going to do as well as you do.
It's taken you a while.
Yes. Yeah. So, but the junior high had a the accountability was at the 50th percentile. The senior high was at a 51st percentile for accountability results. If you kind of get down to like the nitty gritty of it all, there was like a tiny slight decrease in the scores overall, but when you look at the target goal, it's very not as far off as you really would think it is. But I do know that there are putting lots of supports in place for students moving forward as well. And just similar to the results for Burgess, there was an improvement in a lot of the subcategories as well, which is really nice to see. We're focusing on that population as well. And
But
also the writing did come up
Yes,
at our meeting
exactly.
as just a focus area, so that was nice to hear, and they're thinking about all the upcoming kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who love to get into the nitty-gritty of data, TANTAS was always a challenge, especially at the high school, which I will fully say it's a challenge / a frustration for me, and someday I'm going to hit that bee's nest. Because there are, on Desi's books, there are 2 schools in that building. So the MCAS is broken out by 2 schools, which is so frustrating because there is no way for us to get a total picture. So again, I go in being kind of the bad cop and saying Tantascwa Regional High School will have data that looks really good in some cases. But Tantascwa Regional Technical School has not good data. And I have to remind folks, in the middle is the answer. So we can't drink the Kool-Aid with Tantascwa Regional High School looking great because it is the same academic teachers that teach both of those schools. So really, I'm always struggling with, give me that data combined, because that's really where we're at. But it's a struggle, especially when, you know, Desi has all these reports with comparative data or comparative schools. It's a challenge, so we kind of keep teasing in. But again, when push comes to shove, they get into the real weeds and look at where are the students, who are we leaving on that far right, or who are we just missing to move over to the left. So, but we've definitely had a few instances where we'll get a comment or a phone call about how bad the data is, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's not the combined. You know, I will have my friend at Pathfinder Regional Tech say, heads up, they're doing a report on tech schools and mentioned Tantasco's data is really bad, and I'm like, well, it's a combination there, so that was last year. I didn't get the phone call, so it was all good. But it's kind of a misnomer, and even, I'm not sure if any of you saw during our presentation to the Finance Committee last year, one of the newer Finance Committee members had a report that looked like Tantasco's, I think it was the student-teacher ratio, was really, really small, and it was like, why is Burgess's, which was like 12 to 1, which is, when you look at all of the support, which is pretty respectable. And he was like, well, why is that? And it's really because of how that data is being reported with that one building supporting 2 schools. And by the way, many of those classes have like 3 classes in one, because you could have an English class that's teaching honors as well as CP. And how all that gets reported to the state gets really mushed up and confusing and spits out reports that if you don't know, we have to take it all with a grain of salt sometimes. So when we look at our own year-to-year data, that's really the best way to see what are we doing, what are we accomplishing.
Awesome. Thank you. And now we'll move on to unfinished business.
Then unfinished, you haven't seen policies in a few months, but it's time. I don't have anything other than
I don't either. Does anyone? Sorry.
unfinished.
New business?
Okay, that first section there, we will try, I think it's a fairly quick walkthrough, but that will be completely up to Jack. All the love.
We have some new business before we get into the policies. Is there a way we can move the policies on the website?
Oh, yeah.
Move to where, folks?
They're very hard to find.
So hard
Well,
to find. I had to text her today.
You know, under the main drop-down,
That's where no, I know.
we put it there because wherever it was hard to find.
I have it bookmarked conveniently. I'm just saying.
Here's the thing.
I just feel like if I can't find it, nobody can find it.
This is a true statement.
It was a problem, which is why we built it to the main
Under
drop-down.
Tantasqua, that's where you can find
No,
it. Yeah.
no, it's the home one though, but do you see it right on our home page?
I never find it. You have to go to the Tantasqua
We'll talk
website,
offline,
yeah.
well,
Yes. You can't go to Burgess and find the policies. You have
so
to go
most,
to the
you have,
Tantasqua.
but the Tantas, which is the district-wide list.
Correct, but you can't go to the Burgess
Okay,
website.
we certainly,
Pick up Burgess policies.
Okay.
Is what I mean.
offline, I'm happy to take any feedback because I fully
saying, there was a text today.
acknowledge, and it'll come up at the joint meeting. No matter what we do with the website, it's just not good enough. And I agree, I cannot figure out conceptually how to get it better.
feel like
But we're
you
gonna
should
talk
be able
about
to
that, just
search.
please. So what we probably need to do is repeat the link.
'Cause I
If you go to
tried
tantascwa.org and go to the drop down there, the main thing that says policies there.
And then it takes you to the 5 school
Right.
districts.
But if we had just on one of our tabs, on the parent tab, per se,
parent tab
that if
or
it
the
was
on-
there and they just clicked on it and it took them to
It
the
redirects.
Yeah, it's all pointing to the same place, so we just have to figure
Yeah.
out where
Yeah,
else we
right.
could repeat that.
Yeah, they-
I also I
And I really thought it was part of it.
And it doesn't come up when you search.
Can't search.
Okay.
Which is
All
not
right.
super helpful.
I will do some digging again.
Didn't mean to make
It's,
that, I know, sorry.
no,
But it is
I'm,
quite difficult.
I can't fix it tomorrow, but I do want the feedback on where, because I think it's an ongoing, it's been going on for years. And everyone conceptually goes to the website with a different mindset.
Yeah.
So some would go wherever they're going and some would not, and I just don't know how to meet it all, other than,
I just think
other
a
than to
Burgess parent
repeat
is
the
gonna
links
think
a
to
lot
go
of
to
places.
the main Tantasqua website.
Right. And again, in our head, that tantasqua.org is my, then goes off into the 6. I forget, some people just don't care about anything other than the 1.
Yeah.
And don't realize that people, I think, clearly wrong, that anybody who wants to go to the Burgess website is going to tantasqua.org first and then going to Burgess. It didn't even occur to me until this moment that they're going
Burgess
directly
Elementary
to that
School,
school.
yeah.
Got it. All right, we'll work
Okay,
on it.
anyway, sorry about that.
Nope, not a problem. So these, the first, this is MASC in its infinite wisdom. I absolutely, it makes me a little bit crazy that I don't mind a consolidation. I love a good consolidation. What I hate is that the consolidation for them creates a new policy, now called AGA/AGD. I would just call it AGA and add the AGD to it and then rescind both of them. But what they prefer to do is now have what looks like it's a new policy, AGA/AGD, that's what they would like to call it, and in return they're rescinding AGA and AGD, which it's fine. And I think for the most part it's combining, it's a little bit. I'm so sorry. This is my frustration in MASC.
Looking over like a nice one.
So-
I kind of did too, I was just double checking.
So you have the rescinded A and D, which you see on that list at the end, that really what has happened is those two have been combined to create what's called a new one, but it's an IGA/IGD. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot to say. It's truly rescinding the two, creating the one. JLC. I'm in my wrong pile. Is an update, which what we do probably annually. We kind of take a look. Your wellness committee takes a look at updates. In this particular case, it's mostly housekeeping. It's referring on page 1, point blank, to the frameworks, which are the K-12 phys ed and health frameworks that were updated last year, and we're working on reviewing those and implementing any changes. And page 2 is really, adding that statement of we will comply to federal and state nutritional standards, knowing those standards change. If we have that statement there, as they change, we need to follow them. As opposed to most of the strikeout are things that were in the standards that we don't need that detail. That is it for that update. And then the last one in this batch is a suggested amendment to public complaints at the suggestion at MASC, and this is one of the times I fully agree and love what they're saying, which is just to add that one paragraph in the middle, pretty much saying if there's going to be a complaint, it needs to be in writing, and it can't be anonymous, because we just cannot respond. We've got no place to go with an anonymous complaint. That's it for that group.
And KCD,
Yeah.
public gifts to the school?
Oh, that is just the statement that it's been reviewed, there's no suggested
It
changes?
actually does not exist in any of the elementary school policies.
Really?
Yeah, it's not in
She
there.
looked
I did look.
online.
Okay.
I did look online
Okay.
after finding where
I think that
it
that
should
one
live.
should just.
So
Okay.
that one, if we're gonna include it, it needs to be new, but also
Yep.
what Tantasqua has listed is not the same language as MASC.
Right, and
They
that would be
revised it and
which-
updated it in 2022.
But Tantasqua intentionally probably chose not to change. They reviewed it and kept it as is,
Because we.
Okay.
which is why it's kind of cycling through. And again, that you don't have to do what Tantasqua does, but Tantasqua chose to keep what theirs is.
So-
we can talk about whether that's something what do you think? Should we bring it here in the future?
Well, I think we do get gifts,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think we
Yeah.
probably need to have this policy,
Okay.
have a policy,
Yeah.
KCD, whether we go with MASC or Tantasqua.
Yeah.
So, but maybe this should be a discussion.
Yeah, we'll
next
put it on
time.
next agenda,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm gonna
and
ask,
that's-
quick thought.
Gonna be relevant.
If we
to-
bring to you under new business, have you scanned them both and like one more than the other? Because that's where we were, a starting
So I'll
place.
tell you the main difference. The main difference is that Tantasqua says that you have the authority as superintendent to accept gifts under $500, but anything over 500 needs to come to the committee.
Mhm.
MASC says everything needs to come to the committee. I don't have a strong preference on this. I was just noting that they're different.
Where the reference, like MGL, I guess we'll have to talk about this.
Yeah, no, and that one isn't necessarily, that dollar isn't in the, and it's on the GL differential. I mean, yes, there's an
Yeah.
MGL
There
general.
are 2 laws referenced. I actually
Yeah.
did not get into the weeds on
Right.
those.
Well, you know, it's a small enough policy, I'll put them both in the packet for next month.
Okay.
So we'll look at both and see where you folks want to go with it.
You want
Does that make sense?
Little gifts for you.
Yep, thank you much.
Jackie, just a quick question. So thinking about the dollar threshold, so when the parents are choosing to donate to the class, the 6th grade class, would we have like,
I would prefer to keep Tantasco's policy.
just a thought, do you know what I'm saying? Because I got, would that $25 donation have to come to committee in order for us to receive it?
I mean,
To
we're gonna
accept
have
it.
to like accept paper towel donations
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I guess, I think,
Well, that's a good point.
thought it from
You
the
know what I'm saying?
conversation,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Well, we'll
sent
put it
a
formally on
bunch.
the agenda next month.
Yeah. I don't,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
awesome.
Something to think about, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just had, I don't have many questions. I do have a question about the wellness policy, and I don't know if this is a change or not, it was bolded. On the second page, it's saying schools will provide free lunches and/or breakfasts, under guideline 1, and then also says, students are encouraged to start every day with a free nutritious breakfast. So has the state decided we're paying for those forever, or do you have to meet criteria to get the free and discounted food?
And again, the USDA reference is actually the federal. So what the state is doing is supplementing the difference between you. The federal is not giving us universal free lunch. The
Okay.
state is.
So,
Yeah,
I guess I'm just questioning the word free
Yeah.
in both of those locations. And I don't know if those are new or if they were there and bolded before. Do you know the answer to that? Because it's,
I don't think they were in there.
okay, so
Because
they've
we
added
just got
free.
universal free meals.
Right, which is for
Right.
this year, but so are we saying that this policy is gonna be reviewed every year?
It is reviewed every year.
Okay.
Yeah, we start in January and we bring it back forward at the fall of every year, so we
Okay.
have a committee.
So, I mean, I think if it's only for this year and we know that they're free this year, then that's
Yeah.
totally fine. I just would worry if it's opened every year.
well, and if you're okay, you can accept on first reading. We can just do a little bit of chatting and checking before coming back for second reading and adoption.
Our first meeting is the beginning of December, so.
Excellent.
That's all I have.
So do I have a motion to adopt on new first reading policy IGA/IGD, amend upon first reading policy JLC-1 and policy KE, and rescind first reading policy IGA and IGD? We're gonna leave the other one out.
Right.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any other discussion? No, all in favor? Thank you. And policy KCD will move on to
We're
the
gonna put
next
that on
one.
as new business next year.
Okay.
We can bring it back and make sure everybody's on the same page. Well, then we can decide what to do. Awesome. Okay, that's there, and then I handed you all out the updated, wasn't in your original packet.
Yes.
The request to talk about IHAN1 and JICFD, this alphabet soup is just really a challenge for me.
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to bring this up just with the presentation that happened this last month to the 5th and 6th graders. I didn't know how the committee felt about this. So the presentation that was presented to the 5th and 6th graders had some content in there that was sexual in nature. And granted, the content may have, it does need to be spoken about. I'm not disputing that. However, the 5th grade class has not yet had growth and development yet in their teachings, right? So we have this policy where parents are notified 2 weeks prior, given the chance to opt out. So this, we weren't, parents were not given that. Now, the presentation is not part of our curriculum, obviously. But should we, and do we think it's wise to, if we are going to continue to have these presentations, which I do think we should, would it be wise to have an opt-out for something like that? Say not just for the curriculum, but also for, presentations like that. Do we want a sub-policy off of this or something? I would feel more comfortable in making it mandatory, that parents are notified and given that opportunity to not participate until their child has had that curriculum, has had that teaching. That's my position. Because there were a lot of, and me being one of them, there was a lot of questions coming home that I wasn't prepared to answer.
So I feel like there's kind of two issues, right? There's the issue of parental notification and being able to opt out, but then the second piece of this that you're asking for, I think, is harder with not having that presentation until after human growth and development, because that's typically later in the school year, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that sort of limits when that presentation would be able to be offered, which maybe would mean we can't have the presentation if we can't meet that timeline. So I would personally be in support of notification with the ability to opt out. I don't know if I feel totally in support of saying you have to restrict that presentation until after they learn about human growth and development. I know that there was some overlap, but what I had heard about what was presented, and I did go to the online Zoom meeting, it didn't seem like the majority of it was related to human growth and development, or that the majority of it was sexual in nature.
The majority wasn't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is if you're going to touch on something, a particular topic, and you are going to bring that into a teaching environment, you need to, yes, notify the parents. However, do we want to give them an opt-out if they haven't yet had this growth and development? If we're doing it in October.
Right, I'm just wondering if that's even a little more focused than it needs to be. Do we have another policy that just talks in general about, what is that word? Opting out to controversial, right? So maybe we might be looking at the wrong policy.
Okay, what one is
There
that?
might be a
'Cause I
more
couldn't
global
find
one.
it.
Okay, all right, let us, because I feel like I hear you.
Yeah,
And
I
I
know.
hear your concern, and despite what we've said in a commitment, I completely get and respect you'd rather have a policy in writing to say so. So I don't know that I want to pigeonhole it here.
No, I don't know where we would put
Yeah.
something like that.
Maybe one that we.
Okay, we'll look now, but I think if we don't have, we could find and create something that is a more general opt-out option for controversial subject matter.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's some kind of global policy and definition of what that is, which is, of course, will be a little bit gray. But if you're okay with us
I'm fine with
looking
that.
at that, and we can bring that again
That's
next
fine. I
month
couldn't
too.
find it on
Yeah,
the-
I see it in my brain,
Yeah,
but
there was one.
I know there is. So it's,
Okay.
but again, finding the policy book
I could
is as hard
find the
as
policy.
figuring out within all of those
Maybe
policies
find that.
where the stuff is, because it's like, what category did they put that in? So let us dig a little bit there.
Yeah.
And I hear you,
Yeah.
though.
No,
I hear you.
yeah.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
try and bring back
So-
something that's a tiny bit more global instead
Yeah.
of, to your point,
Yes.
tying it to that particular, because
Yeah,
it would
because I
cover
think
it. would
it
cover it.
doesn't,
Well, and that
It
goes with
doesn't
the
have to be
same
so
thing as
specific.
the other, if it's gonna be controversial,
Yep.
and there is one for that ties into the second
I
one that I
think we might
wanted
be able
the
to work
review
with that.
on,
Yeah.
because that was what I was
It's the same issue.
correct.
Okay, so then give us the month to find, I know there is some controversial subject matter
Okay.
policy, and if we can't find it in our book, then we'll go out looking or come, I know we did it.
So it's
But I
just
don't
the
wanna-
wrong one.
In either case, we need to come back to you with a draft recommendation. You couldn't vote on it tonight anyway, so give us a month and we will
Yeah, no,
come back
that's
to you
fine.
with
I just
something.
wanted to.
Yeah, no, I hear you,
One.
I hear you, I hear you. Yep,
But yeah, I appreciate that.
okay,
for the opting out.
we'll find it first thing. right now.
Well,
All right.
I don't think there's anything else, so do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, oh, yes, sorry.
Yes,
I
no,
forgot
you're
there's
gonna
a
need to roll
second.
call into executive, I'm sorry.
Forgot, okay.
I don't think it'll take long.
Forgot about that.
I know, it's
Request
been
to
a long
enter
time.
an executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, 21A to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. The committee will adjourn from executive session. Kaminsky, yes.
Higley, yes.
Burns, yes.
L. Goodwin, yes. W. Goodwin, yes.
Okay, so we will do about a 5-minute recess, and then we will go into our executive session. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening.